I'm Bethany.
Hey. Still me. Still
Not helpful.
No.
Okay. Welcome back, guys. We have a very fun episode today. A little bit out of the norm. You guys know we have done our Men Tell All series for what? 5 or 6? I'm asking you like you've been.
Don't ask me. I haven't been here.
5 or 6 seasons now. And so it's still Men Tell All, but it's also Women Tell All. We have our first completely outside couple interview.
Couple Tell
Mel
All.
and Trey, my sister, way
me?
back a long time ago. We interviewed Kristen and Kevin after they got engaged. So we have Ben and Lindsay here with us, and we're so glad y'all are here. Welcome.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Great. And I hope this is not too nerve-wracking. Just
Nerve-wracking?
deep breath.
Oh, no.
It'll be fine.
All natural, baby.
Okay, so something we do, whether we have people on the show or not, is we have a question of the day. And you are not immune from having to answer it. Unfortunately, you are here on a day that it is Dalton's turn to pick the question.
I've been preparing for this. Random question generators and...
Wow.
Google, man.
He's going to outsmart you.
Just Google it. No,
Okay.
I mean, this is a good question.
What is your question?
If you had to give up one creature comfort in life, what would it be and why?
Oh, that is a good question. You know what? I'm going to go with my heating in my house because so far
What is
this
wrong
winter,
with you?
I have not turned it on.
Same.
It's not winter, first of all.
I like being cold.
But it was like 55 degrees in my
That's
apartment
not
this morning.
winter.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I haven't even gotten chilly inside. Like, I'm good.
I can't say anything. I was sitting outside wrapped in a blanket and it was 55
Our
degrees
house
outside.
right now is 64 degrees. Okay, no heat
Yeah.
activated at all.
How do you feel about that, Lindsay?
Well, I was going to say I'd give up my air conditioning because I'm always cold.
Oh,
so I'm the other end of the
And you are
spectrum.
torturing
Yes.
her with no heat.
Yeah.
This is actually a counseling session.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I've got heat. You've got AC. What's yours?
I'm with you on the heat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, I'm not the only one. Don't look
I
like
didn't
that.
even think of an answer to my own question. And it's definitely not coffee because I have to live by coffee.
I don't think the rest of us want you to give up coffee.
No,
either,
I would be
because-
a hateful, unloving human being if I didn't have coffee.
Quit stalling. What's your answer? Go.
My car.
Is that a creature comfort? What
That is a
quality?
creature comfort, 100%.
What are you going to do? Just Uber everywhere?
No, and just not go anywhere. It's an
You're
excuse
gonna
not to
just
go
turn
anywhere.
Into a hermit?
I already am. What are you talking about? Okay, let's talk about podcast things.
Okay. So at the top, we always do. We have our normal housekeeping ventures, which are social media, the newsletter, and what's the third one?
Your Facebook page?
Oh, yeah, the Facebook group. So anyway, if you don't follow us on social media, you should. LFTM Podcast on Instagram. Looking for the Middle Podcast on Facebook. We do have a Facebook group for the ladies. It is private to join, public to search. So if you look for LFTM Community on Facebook, you can find it. And last but not least, sign up for our newsletter on the website, lookingforthemiddle.com. There's a button, I think it's top right, to sign up for the newsletter. And that concludes the housekeeping.
Good job. Oh, yeah, I still have not given you a bio for that.
Yes, if you go to our website, it still says Dalton Teal, coming soon.
And it also says howdy.
What is
in
this
that section.
picture?
I had to make something. You're not helpful.
Wow,
It's been
that
there-
is like the
it
worst
has been
picture
there
you
for
could have
months.
chosen.
Months.
This is upsetting.
Anyway, focus. So back to this. So guys, let's just jump in. So first thing, tell us about yourselves. Like, don't give anyone any super detailed. We don't want people tracking you down.
Social security number and all that.
But name, how old you guys are, what you do, how you met, all the basics. Go.
Ladies first.
Wow.
My beautiful wife, everyone.
All right. Well, my name's Lindsay. I am 28 and I am a speech therapist. So I work in the public schools. And this is my 5th year, I think.
Nice. Do you enjoy it?
I do like it.
Good.
Yes, I really like it a lot. And I'm from Minnesota originally.
Oh.
So I came here after college because I hate the cold. Hence my air conditioning question.
It tracks.
Yes.
That makes sense.
A Minnesotan doing speech therapy in the South.
Yes.
How does that go?
Think about that.
Well,
Here's side comment.
Yeah.
She says everything very well, although
thank you.
I feel like I have a neutral accent. My dad has an insane Southern accent. The only word that irks me that she says is...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, this
I
really is
really want to
counseling.
know now.
Say plague.
No! I didn't know if you'd give me away. Okay, I say plague, beg.
Oh yeah.
A Marshall.
Commercial. That was the one that got me last time.
But when I first told Dalton all of my words, and then he found out afterwards I was a speech therapist, and his mind was literally blown.
Yeah,
They were like,
really
wait,
over
that's
it.
your job? And that's how you talk?
There was some screaming involved.
That's hilarious. So are you from here?
I
or
am.
Like South or Atlanta or whatever?
I'm a Southern boy,
Okay.
but I lost my accent when I moved up north.
You don't have a ton of an accent.
Yeah.
You know what word you
I
say?
got made fun of for saying y'all in like 8th grade, and that
You're
was
like, I
it.
can't do it.
What's the word he says?
It's my favorite one. Do you know what one I'm talking about?
Lawyer.
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 Because he sounds
like-
like totally
it's
normal, and then just throws it in. Liar.
Y'all need a lawyer.
That's funny.
All right, Benjamin.
Lawyer. It kind of makes sense.
Get off lawyer.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right. My name's Ben Pridemore. I'm the husband of Lindsay. I'm in commercial real estate.
Oh.
Sorry, my hands. I don't know what to do with
Just
my hands.
Yeah.
It's just
Ricky Bobby.
hands straight up. So I'm a commercial real estate broker, mainly in specializing in like warehouses and other boring stuff like that. But it's very people oriented and driven. I'm not like a sit behind a desk and type out on an Excel sheet. So I'm in and out of the office every day and interacting with really cool companies who like need to utilize warehouse space. So I get to like
cool.
learn new things. And I also have worked with churches in the past too, who like some churches move into warehouse space.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So now, how did you guys meet? How long have you been together? Like, high level stuff.
Yeah. We met at our old church that we were at through a Bible study.
Okay.
Yes.
At our community group.
And that was like, 3.5 years ago.
Okay. How long have you been married?
A little over a year.
Okay.
Anniversary was in August.
Good job.
We
Way
made
to
it.
remember.
August 13th.
Excellent.
Check. You
Another
have
check.
success.
You're doing great, man.
That's so funny. Okay, so we have,
I got through that one.
that was question number 1. Technically, we have 10 total here, but it's
Good
just kind of a jumping off point. So if you guys have anything at any point, you're like, ooh, I want to say something,
Yeah.
feel free. So let's just kind of rotate who answers what here, at least first. So Ben, we'll put you on the hot spot
Sure.
first. So when, like, y'all were even dating, what were, like, think back into that time.
Yes.
So what were the top things you were looking for in someone?
Okay, this is going to sound like a total cop-out, but I was not looking to date.
Really?
Out of college, so my high school and college were a shaky part of my life where I was not, let's say, living a very sanctified walk, and there was a lot of slower growth happening, and a lot of terrible habits. And a lot of that had to do with the community I was around, and I was kind of like the lone Christian in my environment, which is very hard to do, especially as a baby believer.
Yeah.
So as soon as I graduated from school, relocate back to Atlanta, where my family is, and immediately tap into the church that we were previously going to. And like God blessed me with being around so many solid younger guys as well, like in their early 20s, mid 20s, just looking to get plugged in, sharpen each other, and grow and become the men that we wanted to be. And so that was like a really fruitful part of my life, and getting back on track, and like the growth and sanctification started speeding up a lot more healthy, how it should have always been. All that to say, like in that community group where I ended up meeting my lovely, beautiful wife, who always caught my eye. I truly, like, I had no idea girls were in our group. Like, we had a group of, like, I don't know, it grew out to, like, pretty big.
Like 50 at one point.
It was like a,
yeah.
it was a younger
so it's
church.
not like 8 or 10 people.
It was a
Okay,
younger church,
okay.
and it was Atlanta's like a very transient city. People moving in and out, especially at our age.
Yeah.
So I was just focused on like being around like Christian dudes that are going to hold me accountable and like get back in the flow. And so I had no idea that girls were a thing. And that was on purpose.
Okay.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
So what flipped the switch then?
What flipped the switch? Gosh, it was the cocoon at the Halloween party.
It's me. I was a cocoon.
No,
Elaborate.
no.
We have to tell them what the cocoon is.
I'm real lost there.
So you can share.
It's not like a cute like metaphor, like I was hidden and emerged. It was like an actual
She
Halloween.
emerges a beautiful butterfly.
No, it's
Bug's
an
Life quote.
actual costume. So it's a Halloween party.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you the first interaction we ever had. We're at a Halloween party. I'm in like a trio costume. So there's a butterfly, a cocoon, and a caterpillar. So I'm the cocoon. So I'm like just wrapped. And Ben is Batman. And I've never seen Batman. Okay? So Ben just walks up to me and we've never talked. No, he said that, but he said,
Where's Rachel?
Where's Rachel? Okay, I've never seen Batman, so I'm like, I'm Lindsay. Like, I don't
Who's
know.
Rachel?
That's exactly what
Yeah.
I would have done. I'd be like, maybe she's in the kitchen. I don't know.
And I'm like, I don't know. Is
Yeah,
there
but
Rachel
that's exactly what I would have
Where's
done.
Rachel? I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Yes. So if you've seen Batman, you get it. If you haven't, like me, I was just like, that guy's weird.
Long story short,
Oh yeah,
that's kind of
switch.
what flipped the switch. I'm like, oh, whoa, girls are real again in my life. Anyways, back to off the chrysalis or cocoon. You were a moth or a butterfly. I don't know. The thing that switched was actually because again, I was not looking for a girl, and I was like I was enjoying my time of singleness, and like I know that clearly see how God was working in my life and fully taking advantage of me being single. I knew deep down I wanted to have a girlfriend or court a girl to eventually be a husband and father, Lord willing. But it switched when you actually reached out to me. And
Did you slide into his DMs?
she kind of did, but like in a very normal way, talking about American gospel.
Yeah, and I don't know how to classify it if I technically slid into his DMs or not, because that's definitely when he noticed me is when I messaged him. But when I messaged him, I was not intending to do
then you
anything.
didn't.
Okay, then it's not. It was like oh, I could be interested. You seem interesting. Maybe there's something.
Yeah.
But also, I really just want to ask you about this question.
Yeah.
So it's like a medium DM slide.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's put a pin here for a second, because this is where you're at during this season.
Mm-hmm.
Before whoever asked who out, I'm thinking it was you, Ben.
Yes.
Where are you at in terms of dating and how you're approaching it?
Yeah. So I became a Christian when I was 18. So at this point, I'm like 23, I think. So I had really like tried to get super involved in college and be involved in a church and a group. So I had a lot of good community and like was making a lot of good growth, and I'd done a lot of thought about dating. So I feel like I had asked those questions and kind of had certain criterion.
Okay.
And so something I was really looking for was like clarity, someone that would be intentional about what we were doing, because most of my relationships before that were just like, oh, we can text for 6 months and no one knows what's going on.
Isn't that so fun?
It's so fun. So I was like, I want to be with someone that actually is clear and intentional and I know what's going on. So that was something I was looking for, but I definitely was looking for someone who is mature too in their faith. Like, I mean, when you're a Christian, it's a non-negotiable, right? Mm-hmm. But I especially wanted someone that like knew the word well and was involved. So yeah, I think I was definitely wanting to date and had a clear picture of what I want.
Yeah.
So in walks Batman.
In walks Batman.
Terrible line to start out with. What was it in you that said, okay, I might be interested in this guy?
It wasn't that at all.
Oh, okay.
No, that was
true.
like probably our first.
I was a great Batman.
Yeah, you were great, but it wasn't that. It was a slow grow because I definitely ruled him out initially. No offense.
But as she should have.
Yeah.
Because if I may say, I'm still like understanding where I'm at, and I like if I had met her in college, no way.
Yeah.
And like God is sovereign, and I was fine-tuning myself and working things out to like become the man that I needed to be so I could be at a place to date a girl like her. Because there was like a point in my life where I couldn't have done that. It would have not worked out at all.
Right. So when I met you, I kind of had an impression of like, I'm not really sure where he's at. And there was a lot of people in the Bible study that knew each other. So a lot of guys and a couple girls knew Ben from like high school.
Oh, okay.
And which is kind of weird because he went to high school in Baltimore. But it was like full circle. There's a bunch of people in Atlanta. And so I think what did it for me is I thought it was funny, which, you know, is always a good start. But then I started listening to his comments more in Bible study. And I was like, that's actually like... not a bad comment. Like, oh, that's actually really wise. He has some good things to say. And then, this is kind of creepy maybe, but I started asking people about him.
That's not creepy.
No,
it's not creepy. I don't know if that's the right word.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's wise. Maybe
I think
it's
so.
slightly creepy. But I asked people, like, that knew
Depends on
him.
the question.
Has he killed anyone?
Yeah. No, not
Is
that.
he a felon? Just wondering. Just curious.
And that was interesting too because I think other people were also trying to figure you out a little bit, like who is post-college Ben. And so I got some really great advice from women, not being like, go for it, he's single, it's great, but more so being like, I know who he used to be and I know he's not that anymore, but I would be watchful about where he's going and encourage you in that.
Which I think that just speaks to why it's so important to have like community.
Oh, yeah.
In your dating relationships. And, you know, I say all of the time on here, don't date in a bubble.
Yes.
But you can't not date in a bubble unless you're already not living in a bubble.
Exactly.
You know, because
Yeah.
if you're bringing in community that knows you well, they have to know you well prior to you actually starting to date someone. And especially in situations where it sounds like you were coming along, but you may have already been a little bit further ahead.
She was more sanctified.
Okay, let's go with that.
Good way of putting
Which
it.
seems to be a trend, I guess. It seems to be a very common thing.
It's as if women mature faster than men. It's crazy.
I'm trying to be very tactful here, but yes,
I'm not.
So, and it gives, like, you were saying you wanted clarity, you want to know, but it makes it tough as the girl to be like, okay, so here's this guy, he seems great, but also, like, he seems a little bit back here, and how do I gauge this is an issue versus this is not? And that's when you bring in that community, especially it's really convenient that they're like, oh yeah, we knew him before.
Yeah.
But if you're coming into a place where you have more of a long-standing community, that's why it's so important, because that one thing probably went a really long way of people saying, this is how he used to be, this is how he is now, because you can look at that and say, okay, maybe I am more sanctified, maybe I am more mature, but I can see that process. You can trust that a little bit more in that, okay, this does seem to be for the long haul in his maturing. And if that's there, it doesn't have to be like equal, because you can trust the Lord is going to continue to mature someone who's truly saved.
We were so blessed by the community that we had, because that came into play later on when we were dating, and like, not even, I don't like dating. It's like a process of evaluating each other for a purpose. But they, like, having that community came into play so big down the road that we can talk about later. But like,
So
we were
was
very
my
blessed.
favorite human being, our favorite human being in that small group?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm always plugging my roommate Andrew. He's the best. Y'all should date him. Anyway.
Agreed. It's my life goal.
We're working together here. So,
Oh my word.
Lindsay, I'm curious. What was it in you? Okay, so you started noticing these things. You're asking about him. How are you kind of sending these signals, letting off some, hey, I'm interested, you should ask me out? Were you more overt, more covert? What did that look like?
Yes. I'm definitely like, if I like you, I'm running away from you and not talking to you kind of person.
Interesting.
You have
So,
to really work hard.
yes. So yeah, I think honestly, one of the big things that I did, and like I was saying earlier, I don't know if it was an intentional slide into a DM or not, but at that point I remember I was interested, and I was like, I've asked some people, he seems okay, like I wouldn't hate talking to this
More than
person. Okay. And then the opportunity kind of just presented itself, because if you guys know the documentary American Gospel,
Highly recommend.
yes,
We'll put it in the
amazing.
newsletter tomorrow. We'll link it so people can.
There's a
can
second
look
one
at
out
it,
too.
which is really good.
Yes. So it had just come out, and
Okay.
I messaged our group of girls and said, "Oh my gosh, anyone want to watch this?" And no one responded. I'm like, "Cool." Ben then messages the entire Bible study and said,
Unbeknownst to
"We didn't know this,"
Okay,
and says,
okay.
"Anyone want to watch this?" Literally the exact same time, and everyone's like, "Yeah, great idea." And
Like, wow, fine, guys.
yeah, so it's fine, but it it was a really unknown documentary at the time because it was really new. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can't believe he wanted to watch that. So that's when I messaged him, and I was like, screenshotted my lack of response, and I was like, I'm so happy you brought it up because I want to see it.
Which I found hilarious, and then my eyes were opened.
So that was the moment.
That was like, because the eyes were already opened, but this is post-cocoon chrysalis moment. And then I'm like, oh, she just like reached out to me. I didn't think that she was coming on to me in any way. But then that's kind of where it got the wheels turning. I'm like, wait, girls exist. I like girls. I want to do it the right way, date the right girl.
Mm-hmm. That light bulb moment. But you ran away from it.
No, not
okay.
Well, yeah, I did.
Oh, there we go.
Then after that, I was like, I'm going to sit on the other side of the room while we watch this because I'm nervous. But he was really good about, like, he found me afterwards, and he's like, I want to talk to you about the documentary. Yeah. And I was like, I have to go. And then he was like, well, we should get coffee. I was like, perfect.
Genius.
So I was going to ask, so from that moment till y'all go out is how long? But it doesn't sound like it was very long.
Not too long.
Okay.
That coffee meetup became like a frequent thing, once a week type thing.
Yeah, but that was a huge thing. Like, that was the first step of clarity for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I haven't met many guys that don't want to text me. Because I assumed since I initially texted him about it that he would continue the conversation that way for a long time until he decided to ask me out. But he was really forward and just being like, oh, like, we have this in common. Do you want to talk about it? And that was really
And it's interesting, too, because I wanted to get coffee so we could talk about American Gospel and then talk about, like, theology. It wasn't even with, like, an ulterior motive saying, like, I see, like, I didn't know you yet. And so that first coffee date, like, we started to get to know each other, and that's when, like, talk about a light bulb, like, a furnace, like, erupted in my mind, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never interacted with a Christian girl in my life. And I knew they were out there. But when she starts talking theology, I like started finding things that I'm like, whoa, I'm so attracted to this. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was attracted to like how you are reading through Romans 9. And I couldn't read it.
Of course you go Romans 9.
With your ESV study Bible.
There we go.
That's really funny. So it sounds like it was a pretty smooth process. Is there anything looking back you're like, wow, I really wish we had done that differently? Or like, oh, that is not something I would ever recommend to anyone else?
In the beginning or just overall?
Just overall.
It wasn't necessarily the smoothest.
Okay.
Yeah. I think bringing back into play what you said about us being on different levels, that definitely came up again. And part of it was my own, like, expectations I had already set, right? So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to marry someone that's going to be a pastor and that knows the word really well and leads me in this and leads me in that.
And who's 6'5".
Well,
You're not 6'5"?
No.
Oh.
I'm a duck getting in through the door.
So I had kind of set those expectations for myself, which I think can really harm a lot of girls who are holding those expectations and they're missing out on guys that could be really great and could rise to be not even necessarily those things, but rise to be just what they need in a godly man and leader. But beyond that, it still was a reality that like I was a little bit ahead of where he was, and we had to navigate those conversations.
And what's awesome is God being sovereign behind it all, but like we were going to benefit from getting to know each other and quote unquote courting each other, whether we worked out or not. Like that was going to benefit us. She was pushing me and like saying, you don't have like good habits right now in this area. Like you shouldn't.
You need to work on this.
Yeah, but that, and then that again goes back to the community piece where I think you can get into a hole if you're saying like, I see this lack in you, right? Like you aren't in the word every day or you aren't doing certain things that like you should be as a healthy Christian. But then if you're dating just the two of you, you become accountable for that, right? And now they might be changing just for you. And it's hard to discern that. And so it's super encouraging
for me to be able to call that out in him and him to be like, I agree, and I'm going to go to these guys that I have, and I'm going to text them and say, hey, anyone want to do a daily, like, group me message to hold each other accountable? And then I get to watch that and see the group me and see him do it for, what'd you do that for, like, an entire year, every day?
And as it turns out, guys struggle with the same things, newsflash.
Right.
And so, like, a lot of us were, like, not in good habits about, like, getting into the Word every day and, like, desiring it and, like, needing it more than I need to breathe. Like, I wanted to get to that point. Like, shout out Paul Washer. But I wasn't. And, like, she saw that. And she was. And, like, that's not going to work. But that's okay. And I credit to her. She, like, didn't just, oh, he didn't check that box.
Yeah.
Done. It's like, you weren't doing this and you should. And that, like, benefited me whether we were going to work out or not. Because then I could go back to my guys in the war room once a week, and we're holding each other accountable, and we end up, you know, as a result of that, that like started the trajectory of like serious growth in that area, and we like went through like the New Testament like 2 times in like a year and a half. Like, it was a really cool thing that initiated just from that.
Well, and what you're also doing there is developing a pattern of communication.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you're willing to call him out on these things at the very outset of it and say, hey, you're not patterning what you need to be patterning, we need to work on this, that is actually, it paid dividends, I'm sure, and later on down the road in dating and now in marriage, of developing open communication, which is a problem that I see with so many dating relationships, is that they're not communicating. So a girl gets into a situation, she realizes the guy is way too immature. He's not really following the Lord, but you feel stuck. You don't communicate, and you end up latching on to someone that you have no business being with in the first place.
Yeah, or like you were talking about, like, you kind of by default would end up being that accountability, which then, in a weird, like, it almost obligates you to stay in this relationship, because even if he is pursuing sanctification and is pursuing the Lord for the right reasons, well, you're kind of responsible for it. Like,
And that's not her role.
it's not at all. And so that, I think that's something that, like, when you go about relationships like this the right way, like you guys, like, okay, I'm going to reach out to these guys to be that. And you were saying, like, even if it didn't work out, like, you gained so much from it. I think we lose sight of, like, relationships like this. We fall into the world's mold of, like, what dating looks like so much. Whereas in this, like, in an early stage like that, it's not this, exclusive, we're just going to spend all our time together by ourselves and whatever. Because that's when you do come into, okay, if in 2 months it doesn't work out, well, now one of you's going to have to leave the community group. You can't both still be there. Like, it's this whole thing, whereas, I mean, it did work out, obviously, but you create a relationship that if it doesn't work out, you can say, well, you know, here's the good we're taking from this, and we can still be friends, and we can still move on. Now, granted, if you've dated for 2 years and you were almost engaged and you break up, I'm not saying you have to stay BFFs with the person. That's not what I mean.
Sure.
But I think the foundation you build those relationships on should look radically different as Christians, just for that very reason.
I don't know why we try to look like the world when we're dating.
Yeah.
It's like, that's like, was really cool for me, because one, I had never actually dated a girl, truly. Like, maybe a high school thing where I'm just not being an idiot. I don't know. And like, you had kind of ups and downs, like rocky, weird dating, but nothing like real. But the way that we did it was so different from what the world is doing, and obviously it should. Like, why do we want to conform to the world in our dating patterns? And it's just like such a blessing the way that we did it, because it's not easy, but like the biggest strengths of our marriage right now are as a result of how we dated.
Yeah.
Like, especially with communication and dating with clarity. Like, I can't tell you how many times I DTR'd. And that terrifies guys. Define the relationship. What do you mean? I'm not going to define the relationship. What relationship? Like, I was doing that once a week, it felt like, to keep her and us on the same page.
Yeah.
Like, hey, where are you at? Here's how I'm feeling. Like, here's where I think we're moving towards, and I'm on the same page. I like know everything that's going on in your mind. You know everything that's going on in my mind, and
I think that helped us too as we like dated longer, because it was such a pattern that was like normal, and it wasn't super formal. It's not like it's time to DTR. Like, it wasn't like that.
It's that time of the week.
But he did make a point really early on, like probably every week or every other week, to be like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, this is like how I think it's going and where I think it's going. And then once we dated longer and we started talking about getting engaged or getting married, he was like very cautious with bringing that up and the timing of bringing that up, which I think is really wise. But I didn't have to question, is he thinking this? Is this where we're going? Because I knew he was so intentional the entire first half of our relationship with bringing up where we were at, that once he was ready to bring that up, that I could trust him to do that.
And the clarity of, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You have an out. Every date, I think I said that, like,
you can dump me if you want.
I know. It was
dump me,
like,
I dare you. No, but I was like, you have an, I don't feel like we have to keep doing this. Like, I want to, just so you know, but I don't have that authority. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I know, I think that was just something that was nice, because in my past I've had guys, when I break up with them or when I'm like, what are we doing? Or they say, what are we doing? And then it turns into like, well, you shouldn't have done this. You should have known. And you like kind of when you don't DTR, there's not clarity. And so part of being intentional in your conversation is even saying like, we aren't married. So like, I don't have anything over you. And we are both evaluating each other, but like we are putting our relationship with the Lord first, and we should end this if that's something.
And if there's anything that I'm doing that's hindering your walk, don't text me for another hangout. You know, and like maintaining that clarity really benefited us, because that just led to like crazy good communication where we avoided a lot of maybe potential conflict that we would have run into otherwise. Because it only gets harder as you continue the next stage.
Well, and in hearing your story, a lot of it was dating and community, having a lot of really good, wise people around you. So kind of coming out of that, what's some of the best advice that you've been given by other people, whether it's in the community, church that you were in, or family, whatever, for dating? Awkward silence. They were never given any good advice.
Well, I think the thing that was most applicable to me is like, you really don't know what you want. Like, I thought I knew what I wanted, and I kind of hit on that earlier, and Ben is amazing, and he is so many of those things, but in a different way than I thought he would be.
He wasn't 6'5".
Okay, again, yeah.
I'm glad to know
But
you guys have really gotten past
you're
that.
beautiful in every other way.
No, you.
Yeah, so I just think back, like, not only would those expectations, like, eliminate me from dating someone, which I'm so thankful that I dated him anyways, but also they did cause, like, hardship within our relationship at times that he wasn't measuring up to what I thought he should. And that was something I had to, like, identify myself and you know, confess and apologize for in certain situations, because that makes communication hard, and that makes having a relationship hard when you're expecting them to be at these levels that just aren't realistic for someone that's younger.
Yeah. Well, and like if you're taking your expectations, which maybe it's fine for that to be it's a good thing to want, it's a good thing to look for, but if you're taking your thoughts and your ideas and saying, well, I'm going to hold this to the same level that I would hold this scriptural command, that's when you get into trouble, because you're now saying, okay, I know what's best, and I'm going to demand this of someone, and really it's your preference.
Right.
To an extent. And that'll get you in trouble.
Yeah,
Speaking from
absolutely.
experience here. Like, trust me, I'm like, yep, I get it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Don't worry, I've kicked those drawers like a million times.
I think this may not be what am I trying to say? This may not be true for everyone, but I didn't even plan it, but it benefited us. Like, third date, maybe, we're sitting at McDonald's.
Nice.
Gonna date me at McDonald's. She'll love me. If she'll love me at McDonald's.
Someone buys me McDonald's fries, I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
you're
that
a
was
keeper.
my request, actually, if you remember.
There's like two coffee dates, and then we upgraded to McDonald's.
Man, what kind of coffee shop were you going to?
You're a snob.
For me, that's a downgrade.
I think I told her everything I've ever done.
Like way early. It's like, I haven't killed anyone, but everything else is fair game.
I'm glad you haven't killed anyone. But no, that is interesting, though. I don't remember who I was reading it from, but they were talking about the importance of having big conversations early.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that you do it first date, because I've known a lot of guys that have gone on first date and then just opened up their entire chest and then proposed within the same conversation. This is not a joke. I'm being dead serious about that too.
Really?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. They said everything about their lives, and then they hit them with it. And I think I should probably marry you. I'm like, what is wrong with you? No, don't do that. But it is important to have those conversations because you don't want to get 6-8 months down the road extremely emotionally invested. All of this comes out, and it's a deal breaker for you.
And it's like if our standard is like great communication and like we're like on the same page at every step of the way, like then like the big reveal when like feelings are super real and like people can get hurt, that is a place that I never wanted to be in. And maybe that's why, which like naturally just kind of happened that way super early. I wouldn't always recommend it that early.
Yeah.
But having the tougher conversations on the front end, because then you can really learn about the person. Mm-hmm. And that didn't really scare her off, which I didn't expect it to be, because she's a believer and she's treating me like a brother in Christ and like seeing what God's done in my life and like, but God and like how I'm living now. Doing hand motions like R.C. Sproul.
Well, yeah, and I think too, we did that after we had established we liked each other. Like I don't think it was like we're not quite sure what we are, and let me tell you everything. It was like we had established we both want to go on more dates. We're both feeling like we could be interested in each other, and then
now that you like me, are you sure?
Yes, pretty much.
Let me convince you to not.
Yeah, I'm gonna do everything I can. Here's my pitch about why you shouldn't like me.
But I think that I actually really appreciated that because. Yeah. It made me feel like he was vulnerable, which is something that's really hard to do. Yeah. So I respected that.
Well, and also not having anything to hide.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, okay, he put it all out there. Like, there's no reason to think, oh, I wonder what he really thinks.
Right. And that is something that, like I was saying, when you're like, you don't really know what you want. I thought I wanted someone like shy and very formal and like, all these things.
And you got the opposite.
That's what I'm saying. But the thing that Ben just like spews everything out. And that is so helpful for me because I'm never like, what are you thinking? I know what he's thinking, and that's awesome.
But the root of that, like, and that was like after like I wanted to date prayerfully. Like I wanted to like my will to be aligned with the Lord's, even with like starting to get to know this girl who I had never met before, and I wanted to date with clarity, and so like that's just how it naturally happened. Like that time was the time to like dive into the good stuff, and maybe that looks different for someone else, but like the root of that is like dating prayerfully. Dating with clarity and establishing that communication and vulnerability like earlier than later, and there's benefits to that. And
I really like the part of clarity kind of being the major overarching theme of your relationship, because for me, I'm an anxious person. I mean, I tell people all the time I struggle with anxiety, so when there's no clarity, that's just a breeding ground for anxiety, because then I'm sitting there the entire time trying to figure out, okay, are they interested? Are they thinking the same things that I am? When you just lay it all out there and say, this is where I'm at, this is who I am, take it or leave it.
Take me as I am.
You're not left confused. Yeah. You're not left anxiously thinking, I don't know where this is going. You have clear direction and understanding, and you can sit there and go, okay, yes, or okay, no.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's something I've said over the years of doing this to the guys, basically, that I know it's hard to put yourself out there. I know it's hard to just, go out on a limb and say, I like you or whatever. But especially just knowing how girl brains work, the more holes you leave for us to fill in, the more trouble you're going to find yourself in. Because either we're going to go to absolute worst case scenario. He hates me. He never wants to talk to me, whatever. Or we're going to fill in, even if it's like you're talking about your expectations and your ideals and all this stuff, if you leave stuff out that we have to fill in ourselves, we're going to automatically fill it in with what we have always imagined someone to be, which you probably never were, and that's fine, but we're expecting you to be now because you kind of left it ambiguous and we filled it in, and now we're disappointed in you when really it was just a lack of communication about like who you are and what you're looking for and all those things. So the fewer holes you leave for us to fill in ourselves, the better off everyone.
Like she would have to work extra hard to do that. Even like months into the relationship, after every date, she like knew where I'm at. Every time.
Which is guys take note because that's definitely not the norm.
No.
Way to break the mold. The mold. Break the mold. Break the mold. Be bold.
Okay, so I feel like we had the next question is supposed to be what's the best dating advice you would give
Clarity
to
feels
someone.
like the
I feel
answer.
like we've kind of covered that one, so we're just gonna skip on over. So next,
Tell them everything.
we're gonna go. I don't even know who's supposed to answer first. Oh, we've been all over the place, so it's fine. So Lindsay, we're just gonna call you out.
Okay.
So what, like, taking out from dating in general to dating as a Christian specifically, what would you say in general, not like in y'all's relationship specifically, but in general, like, what is the most difficult aspect of dating as a Christian? Like, because it adds a layer of pressure.
Before you answer that, because I'm curious. Part of the reason that we have y'all on here is because I just love you both to pieces. The other part of it is because you listen to this podcast in the very early stages.
We probably should have covered that like 30 minutes ago.
We could have covered that a while ago, but we're jumping in there. So with that question in mind, some of the most difficult aspects, because I know you've told me and told Bethany as well that there's not a lot of good communication out there for Christians trying to figure out the dating. So how did that play a part? Because I wasn't part of the podcast, so you're not making me proud or anything like that.
I think so. We dated for a while, and then you start talking about getting engaged. And I too am an anxious person, and so that's why Ben is so perfect for me, because he like fills in all those holes, and that clarity just helps me not wander. But then you still have to make that decision of, am I supposed to marry this person, which is essentially what getting engaged is that commitment. So I actually found the podcast because I started Googling Christian advice at when to get engaged. And I found it. And I was like, this is really good. And I listened to a bunch of episodes. And then, side note, I didn't even know you hosted it.
No.
So,
okay, wait, let's pause. Let's tell this story.
Okay, so I found this podcast. Ben and I get married. We come to this church, I don't know, 6 months after we're married, right? So this is a long ways down the road since I had found it. And I'm just trying to make friends here. And I see a suggested friend on Facebook, and it says Bethany. So I click on it. I'm like, she looks familiar. And from church.
Actually, we had like crossed paths a couple of times.
Just like saying hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I knew who you were. So I was like, oh, Bethany. And I started scrolling. And then I see the podcast. And I'm like, oh, she listens too. Cool. And
another listener.
I'm like, that's so weird. And then I'm like, why is she posting about it? Like, she like owns it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's hers. So that was like a really small world.
That is so funny.
But back to the original question. I feel like I wanted direction in dating because as a Christian, dating takes on a new light because you're not just dating for yourself. You're dating to honor God. So I wanted to get as many resources as I possibly could, because it's not just about me and am I going to be happy and am I going to have a nice wedding or am I going to have cute kids. It's like, am I making a commitment to someone that's going to help me honor the Lord for the rest of my life, and I'm going to help them honor the Lord for the rest of their life. So I think there should be resources out there, because the Bible is not specific about dating, right?
Yep.
So a lot of it is using wisdom and discernment. And
which actually, I think in the order these are coming out, that's literally what we talked about last week.
Yeah, sure. What did we talk about last week?
Remember, we talked about like dating is not a biblical construct.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So what do you do about it?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's two relationships. We're brothers and sisters in Christ, or we're husband and wife. And we try to marry the two and call it dating.
We'll call it marriage. Wow, we just went completely off.
Sorry, we
track.
deviated. What was the original?
That's what we do here.
So let's ask the same question here. So for you,
This is so easy. I thought we were going in a different direction with this.
okay.
Wait, what?
Hardest, I mean, the most difficult aspect of dating as a Christian, like, well, the way that we dated too may even be quote unquote extreme, even for Christians, just because of how maintaining purity during the process. Maintaining purity and having to work so hard to accommodate that whole sphere of temptation and being in positions to, like, how do we continue to get to know each other? Where can we do that? You can't just come over to my apartment and watch a movie. I know who I am. No, Ben.
And she knows who you are at that point too. So.
I know, and she knows everything now. So she's definitely not gonna do that. But it's like we can date in public, and we can be out at a coffee shop or at a restaurant, and we're fortunate, and this is where the church really comes in. Is like we have people around us where, and fortunately, a lot of our friends that we looked up to were like already married and like on their second or third year of marriage, and like we could really learn from them as we're dating, and we can go to their house and hang out and have a game night, and then we're dating in community. They're seeing how we're dating each other. It's just all that's naturally happening while maintaining purity and like being in bubble wrapping ourselves from that.
Yeah.
Because that's not how the world dates. The world's like, when are we moving in? Like, so, but also like maintaining that when you're like growing feelings and like, I'm finding out things I'm attracted to that I had no idea I was attracted to, and like who she was as a Christian woman, and I'm just like, whoa, this is awesome, but also like I need to snap out of it.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 1 Corinthians 10:31, doing everything for the glory of the Lord, and then it's considering your own heart, that you have to guard your heart daily. I mean, Ephesians 6, putting on the armor of God, is an everyday affair. That we are literally preparing ourselves for battle every single morning that we wake up. But then what you have both said, it's considering the other as your brother and sister in Christ. That's so foundational as you approach dating, that you don't just look at them as someone that I'm attracted to or someone I'm interested in. This is, in all seriousness, that is my brother or sister in Christ. And if you don't look at it that way, I think you're doomed from the start.
Right. And if I'm looking at her as my future wife potentially and evaluating that, it's like if this works out according to plan, I'm going to be tasked with like making sure her spiritual walk with the Lord is like, I'm nurturing it and facilitating, like I'm tasked with that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm getting in selfish habits beforehand, that's not going to translate well. It's only going to get amplified exponentially.
Yeah, there's so many things, good or bad, that like getting married and saying I do is not going to flip a switch. So if you're building patterns of selfishness, or you're building patterns of laziness or whatever, now, you know, putting a ring on your finger and saying those words isn't like, okay, well, now I'm selfless and, you know, not lazy. It doesn't work that way. And same thing with those good habits. They're not just going to disappear. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just in a much closer context than once you're married.
Yeah.
Patterns formed in dating are amplified the moment you say I do.
Oh, yeah.
Good or bad.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. We say that so forcefully as the two single people.
Yeah.
We're like, absolutely.
No, it's so true.
Whoa.
What in the world?
Wowzers, that was loud. I thought that was muted. People
Time's
want
up.
me to call them.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so the next question here is just talking about asking if you felt supported by your church through the dating process.
I feel like the answer
which
is
I
yes.
think we definitely have, but I want to kind of hang out here for a second still, because dating in the church and being supported by your church, I don't think the church knows what to do with single people a lot these days, because marriage is being so delayed. Like, there are so many more older Christians in the church now than there ever have been. And I think the church is a little bit like, we don't know what to do with all these people, because it's never been something they had to figure out before. So it sounds like your church did a really good job of this. So what are some things that they did really well that you would encourage churches to do? But then also, maybe even if it wasn't them, but just in looking at it, what are some things that you're like, you know what, I really wish the church would come alongside and do X, or this would be really helpful? What are some things that you guys saw throughout that whole process?
I'll let you fill in, because I'm going to leave so many missing holes. That's what you do. We had so many opportunities, because we met through our community group at this church, so a lot of getting to know each other was through the community group, and external activities outside of Bible study that a church can like help facilitate for its younger people is huge, because then it's like, oh, we're all real people, and we're not like having to like go through Nahum together. Like, let's go bowling. But you know what I mean? Like,
I love that.
Go straight to Nahum.
I love it.
But that's like, that's what because the church isn't just Sunday or Thursday night whenever you're doing your community group. It's every day with each other, with the people of God. And so we were fortunate to have like so many opportunities to like get to know everyone in our group and function that way. Like, I think that really benefited us. And churches that, I think some churches do a good job at that, and some churches are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. I think something they could do better, or something that I thought like really benefited us, and I would like to see maybe more formalized, is having either single people or dating people just be so in community with people that are married. Because I feel like a lot of times they split it to be this is the singles group and this is right,
here.
exactly. And they split those groups, and I think that's a disservice, because even if you have zero prospects on your horizon, like you should still be spending time with married people and even dating people, because watching people's relationships and learning from them is an awesome way to figure out how to do your own.
That's a really good point. And we have a lot of girls reach out who say, I'm 25, I'm 26, I'm 27. I've never been on a date. I've never been asked out. And now I feel like I'm behind. Now I don't know what to do. And it's like this huge barrier to, if a guy were to be interested, you're so nervous and so self-conscious and so worried about it that you freeze up and you almost self-sabotage a little bit sometimes, to where just what you're saying, I think because the church is so segmented sometimes, it almost makes that even more. To where because you're not dating someone doesn't mean you can't learn from someone else's dating relationship or someone else's marriage. Like the things this is realistic to look for. This is what a real marriage looks like. You can learn those things. And I think just the confidence that comes from that, of seeing what relationships look like, even if you haven't been in one, is invaluable. And I think, it could go a long way with, because I know girls shy away because they're like, I don't know what to do. If someone were to ask me out, I wouldn't know what to do. So I'm just going to remove that entire possibility almost.
Right.
And it's kind of backwards.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so this next question, actually, I've kind of asked all the questions. Do you want to ask the next one?
Hey, I have seamlessly asked them.
Okay,
I
well,
have just intermingled them.
Monopolize.
And you're just over here. Next question.
Yeah, I don't have
Bring
as
it.
much tact as you do today.
I'm gifted. Gifted people.
And so humble.
Exactly.
So, okay, this question is just, I don't know, it doesn't really flow with the rest a lot. It's kind of just out there, but this is something we see all the time. Guys are just scared to ask girls out. And as a girl, I always I don't get it. Like, we're not, most girls are going to say yes, da-da-da-da. And then I actually asked a guy out, and I was absolutely terrified. And I was like, I totally understand. I get it now. But what would be your encouragement, Ben, specifically, to guys saying, hey, just ask that girl
Shoot
out?
yo shot.
Yeah, what would you tell guys?
There's a couple levels. So, I want to just be like, man up. But that's not graceful. But it's also true, because you need to take the initiative. And it's great if how it happened with us, where she quote unquote slid into the DMs talking about a documentary that we both loved, and that kind of initiated things where then I could initiate. But guys probably should kind of check the ego at the door and just man up and get in the habit of leading in that way, because if that's going to be hard, just asking a girl on a date, bending the knee will be impossible. Because I feel like we dated fairly well. We had our mistakes, but getting to the point of engagement and bending the knee was still super hard. And having to initiate that, because that's me. She's not bending her knee. I am. And I'm charged with like leading our marriage and like establishing that habit early on when like guys who are like in their mid-20s have never had to do that. I think that's valuable. Even if you get rejected, it's like you're practicing that spiritual muscle of quote unquote leadership in a way, and initiation, and like, and it may not always naturally be that way, and it's great when girls like maybe drop a hint every now and then. But it's not always like that. Yeah. And I think that also is attractive to girls. Like when guys just
man up and say, hey.
100%.
I'd
Even
like
if
to take
you
it.
don't sound the most graceful doing it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Say yes.
yes. Oh, because I will say, it's endearing.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
I think it's adorable.
I agree.
If you stumble over your words, you don't know what to say, and you're obviously
just
nervous.
Get this. Like,
This
this
was
is the most
Ben's-
embarrassing thing of my life.
Ben's first DTR were like by my car.
Yeah.
And I don't even know to this day what you were trying to say. He was stuttering and he just kept repeating, and we talked about this, so he said I could share. He kept saying, I like you. and I like you, and I like you, and I don't know what I can't talk right now. I like you. Like I think he said it like 5 times, and I was like, "Are you proposing?" He's like, "No."
I genuinely had no idea how to talk at that moment.
Yeah.
So that happens too.
But it didn't. It was like added to, like you said, it's endearing, but it also is like, wow, this is hard, and he's willing to do something for me that he is uncomfortable with.
Yeah. To see someone like, they're nervous, they don't know what to say, they don't want to, but I'm like, but you're saying something. You are making the effort to do that. And even whether it's DTR, whether it's asking you out, like, if a guy were to come and just say, I'm interested, I want to take you to dinner, even if I hadn't ever really considered him before, unless there were like huge red flags, I'm like, this is not like, definitely not like, it would sway me to be like, wow, I hadn't thought of this before, but yes, let's go get dinner. Just that one act of saying, putting yourself out there, saying, I'm interested, I want to take you to dinner on a date, that goes a long way. So.
Yeah, man up.
Man up already. Where's Rachel?
There we go. That's how you man up right there. Dress as Batman. Go straight up to the cocoon and go for it.
Fight some crime.
All right. Well, this is kind of the wrap-up question. If there's anything that you can leave listeners with, see, I'm trying to be more like you, just not transition at all, and just throw the question out there.
I got nothing today. I am just like, here's
if you
the
can leave
list we're reading.
our listeners, our audience, LFTM fam,
okay.
with anything, any thought on dating or just life in general, what would it be? Go. Broad question.
One encouragement, and God is good, and we've seen the blessings of establishing like really hard things, hard habits at first in our relationship, and like we've seen the blessing on the other end, like even in our marriage, because of how like we dated. It's like led to gospel opportunities with people like either asking things like, oh, like a coworker, like, oh, how's your girlfriend Lindsay? Have y'all moved in? Oh no, we're not doing like just and we can rehash this, but that's what I'm trying to get towards, because then it's like, oh, where'd you meet your wife? Bible study. What is that? And then it's just like everything that we've done, and as a result of us being together, when the world asked about it, it's led to gospel opportunities, which is like really cool. I don't know if that's advice.
No, I think it doesn't have to be advice, just kind of a thought, but it's going to the point of like, as Christians, where is it? Is it in one of the Peters? Always ready to give a defense for the hope that's in you.
One of the Peters. There were different Peters.
First, second.
Oh, the first Peter, and then there was another Peter that came later?
You are being intentionally difficult.
Yes, I am. If I could basically summarize what you said, though, it's date in such a way that reflects the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's whether we work that or not. One, we're going to benefit from coming together, getting to know each other, because we're dating the right way. We're dating prayerfully. We're dating with clarity, establishing communication. I'm developing habits as a man and a future husband, potentially, that's going to benefit the right girl if it wasn't her, and she's going to benefit from being with me. But two, like overall, of course, if you're dating in a godly way, like that's going to advance the kingdom and proclaim the gospel in ways that like I can't even articulate.
Yeah.
And that happens just randomly. It's like, oh, where'd you meet your wife? Bible study. That leads to a conversation, like a coworker being like, what's Bible study? What does that mean? Or why haven't you guys moved in yet? Haven't you guys been dating for a year? Oh, we're not doing that. We're waiting until marriage, and here's why. Or just random things like that.
Yeah.
Where we can proclaim the gospel through our relationship.
Yeah. Well, and I think biblical marriage is one of the clearest pictures of the gospel. It's Christ and the church. And if you're dating in such a way to end up at that, then like you are proclaiming the gospel by how you're living out your life and by how you're approaching relationships, and people are going, okay, that's different.
And dying to self too.
Yeah.
It's like I have to like put all of this that I want away because it's bad. I'm at war with myself, but it's worth it. And yeah,
that's good.
You,
Do
ma'am.
you have any final
Same question.
thoughts?
I'm trying to figure out how to condense them. There's so many different directions
We're
I
not
could
in a hurry.
go.
Go ahead.
No, I think like the biggest thing I run into talking to my friends that are single and going off of that would be like, if the gospel is not in your relationship, then don't be in it. Right? So we're saying your relationship should reflect the gospel, but it's also a good indicator of if you are not growing with your relationship with God, and if he's not growing with his relationship with God, that is like the sign to leave. And right, and you can have ups and downs. Like we definitely had times when it was like, wow, we're struggling with this and we've never struggled with that before, because dating's going to bring new challenges, right? So that doesn't mean you need to leave, but overall, like both people should always be individually evaluating like, what does my relationship with Christ look like, and if the answer is anything negative, then it's probably not there.
Walk away.
It's not about me, and it's not about her.
Right.
It's about the Lord.
As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, it's so true.
I feel good.
I feel good.
I feel weird sitting on this side staring at you from this angle.
It's kind of strange. Like, this side of your face is weird.
I feel great about this. I was actually genuinely so excited about this interview, if only for the fact that my roommate just talks nonstop about y'all. Like, obviously, we got the bromance going on. I love you both to pieces, right? But he's even told me, he said, I can't wait for when I start dating, because I want Ben and Lindsay to be a big part of that relationship so I can emulate what they did.
That's like the highest compliment.
Yeah.
Like, really. Like, yeah.
Coming from a man like him, too, that's just like...
So before we start really going down the Andrew Rabbit trail, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here.
Guys, we are so glad you guys have been here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having
driving across Atlanta, which is no small feat. To be here and do this, we have been looking forward to it. I'm going to get this edited. We will get it out, and it's going to be so great. But we will be back next week with something. I don't even know what.
We never know what's on the schedule.
But we will be back then.
Next week.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week. But until then, I'm Bethany.
And if you're single, beautiful, and love Jesus and want to date my roommate Andrew, please let me know. And this is Looking for the Middle.